I'm in, this little thing is in my son's old bedroom, and I'm just.
Welcome back to Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Kyle Torgerson in studio, and we have our health news contributor online with us as well today. Jody Summers will be coming up in just a moment. Some great discussion around blood sugar. So if you have either somebody in the family who's diabetic, or you're diabetic yourself, or have concerns or questions about blood sugar, this is going to be a great show for you. Before we do that, let's go to the weather. And do we have the little sunny sphere showing up out there, Kyle?
Yeah, actually, it turns out it's not a tennis ball. If you look out in the sky, it's actually pretty good. Today, sadly, it's going to be cloudy with a high of 63 and a low of 44, but the rest of the week, it looks like it's going to be beautiful. Mostly sunny, partly cloudy. It's going to be pretty great.
So if everybody who's following notices a slightly different studio look today, it's a second studio location we have now, one over on the hill overlooking the city of Longview. That's where we're at right now. And the other studio, of course, is downtown on 14th Avenue. So we are on the hill today, and you're going to see some of our broadcasts, even when the weather gets beautiful, off the deck, off the back of the building overlooking the city too. So we look forward to having you join us on some of those outdoor broadcasts. Well, I have one other piece of local business we have to do right away in the beginning of this show, and you're going to have to make sure that you tag her in the broadcast. But I have to say happy birthday to Trisha Wilson, who is one of our local celebrities. She's having a birthday today. And apparently myself and some others, we're going to go sing karaoke, or karaoke, however you like to say it in your neck of the woods. But a whole bunch of people are going to go make fools of themselves and attempt to sing, I guess, at Trisha's birthday party tonight. So, Trisha, we are looking forward to celebrating with you. All right, let's go to Jody Summers. Jody is joining us out of Northern California. How's the weather down in your neck of the woods, Jody?
Oh, it's fabulous. Clear, like 65. It's just gorgeous today.
Well, rub it in just a little bit, would you?
I'm so sorry. I hear you have sun coming.
Yeah, we do. We do. And you know, Jody, we have even something better from here. I'm looking out of the glass windows on the other side of the studio here, and I see 8 chickens walking out there in the grass that have been providing farm fresh eggs for us. So this kind of fits into our topic about blood sugar today, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
All right, so take it away. Explain some of the concerns around blood sugar and the research that you've done around it, and help enlighten us around the importance of blood sugar.
Absolutely. Well, so what we're seeing in our culture is literally a blood sugar, just an epidemic of type 2 diabetics, and so many people being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's just exponentially grown in the last 10 or 15 years, and it's getting younger and younger. I mean, we're seeing, you know, you started with teens, and then it went to 10s, and now we've seen even children as young as, 6 and 8 years old being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which used to be an old person's disease. Mm-hmm. But if you look at what causes it, the root cause is insulin. And too much, your body produces too much insulin, and too much insulin is produced by blood sugar spikes, and blood sugar spikes come from sugar. So we're going to talk a little bit about you don't wake up one day. You can go into your doctor and have your yearly blood test done, and you get a fasting blood test, and he gets you a snapshot of that day. And oh, yep, you're on your way. And the next year you go back and you're type 2 diabetic, and it didn't happen overnight. I mean, you're not have normal blood sugar one day and then you're diabetic the next. It doesn't happen that way. It is a spectrum. And on that spectrum is, let's say, normal blood sugar over here. Then there's hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. Then there's hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar, but doesn't really qualify yet as type 2 diabetics. And then there's type 2 diabetes. Mm-hmm. And anywhere in there is called blood sugar dysregulation. And oftentimes we'll go in for our blood test, our yearly checkup, and you can be way up to the edge of that blood sugar dysregulation, and your doctor says, you're just fine. Oh yeah, you're fine. There's nothing you need to do. Well, since type 2 diabetes and blood sugar dysregulation has everything to do with what we eat, there are plenty of things you can do that you're not right up on that edge, and it's much safer to be way down here on the normal range anyway. You feel better, you lose weight, you just have more energy. And the key to managing blood sugar is macronutrients. Mm-hmm. And macronutrients are, well, there's really 4 of them. We're not going to talk about water today. So there's 4. There's water, fat, protein, and carbohydrates. So today we're just going to talk about fat, protein, and carbs. Mm-hmm. And I just have to put in this plug. I know this is not, but I mean, there are good and bad fats. There are high quality and low quality proteins. And then there are real and processed carbohydrates. So in each category, there's good and bad for each one. And so, a lot of people say, well, you need carbohydrates because that's vegetables. Well, if you look at processed carbohydrates, which are like obviously the things that we all know about, which is, ice cream and cake and candy and all of those things. Those are all obviously processed carbs. But there's also things that, we were taught, I know you have, even older children, I was taught in school that, whole grains and, you need to make sure you're getting your pasta and your no, you don't need to make sure you're getting your pasta. You need to, and if you are going to have carbohydrates, I mean, there's nothing wrong with carbs. They need to be in whole food forms, which is like vegetables and fruit. A big salad of spinach and, cauliflower and broccoli and cabbage is carbohydrates, but they qualify under the healthy carbs, not the processed carbs like cereals and French toast and pancakes. And those are just, when you hear if you have the word cake in your breakfast, it's not good. Okay, so cake should never be included for breakfast, whether it's a birthday cake or a pancake.
And so yet, anyway, how many people do exactly that? Pancakes and waffles, and then they drowned it with some log cabin syrup. Yeah, it's just...
And margarine.
And margarine, yes. Yeah. Or I can't believe it's not butter.
Yeah. So again, that's a bad. So that's a topic for another time. Healthy fats, good fats and bad fats, high quality protein and low quality protein. But again, it's just something to think about because we hear carbs. We think of carbs and blood sugar, and then somebody will say, "Well, I eat plenty of vegetables, and those are carbs, but they're a different kind of carbohydrate. They don't spike your blood sugar." And we're going to talk about that in a minute. They don't spike your blood sugar like candy spikes your blood sugar. It's not even the same. And in our medical literature, it should be separate. And so we need to start thinking about how that should really look. Anyway, this is a little flyer. I hope you can see. Let me see. Can you see that? Right. Let me fold this in half actually so I can see what I'm showing. All right. Can you see that little circle?
Yep. The pie chart.
Okay. So at the bottom, if I recall, it's fat, correct? Mm-hmm. No, the bottom one is protein. This one right here is protein.
Yep, there you go.
Fat, these carbs. So the protein is approximately 30%. Mm-hmm. And unless you have a medical reason or you're a high endurance athlete, that's generally a very good percentage rate for protein. So we're left with these two, which is fat on this side and carbs over here. And if we follow what we consider mainstream teaching, and that is the low fat. So if you look at the chart, because it's you have to and if your protein is managed at 30%, if the fat goes down to, let's say, 10%, by default the carbohydrates go up.
Correct.
So we're going to look at this one. Now we're going to go to this chart. This is a chart. Can you see that one? Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Insulin reactions to macronutrients.
Yep. Okay, so this right here, imagine that this is a blood draw after you have eaten. Okay, so if somebody eats a high carbohydrate, so high sugar breakfast, pancakes, syrup, orange juice, and then, you know, coffee with sugar, okay? And I'm making that up because that's extremely high carb breakfast, but your blood sugar is going to spike very high, and then you know, if you have normal blood sugar, it's going to stay within the range. If you have blood dysregulation, it's actually going to even go higher than what shows here. Now, if you have a meal that's high in protein, it's going to spike a little bit, but nothing like a high carb meal. And if you have a meal that's high in fat, that blood sugar is not going to spike at all. Okay, so keep this chart in mind. When you spike your blood sugar, your body produces insulin to manage the blood sugar, okay? So to kind of manage all that sugar in the blood. Insulin, and this is probably the most important sentence in this whole thing, insulin is a fat storage hormone. Okay, so if insulin is a fat storage hormone, we want to maintain our insulin level spikes very low so we don't store as much fat. And the way to do that is to have less spikes of blood sugar. The way you do that is to not eat sugar. So what we're seeing is these little kids, you know, who go to school with a sandwich on white bread and an orange. And I mean, not that an orange isn't good, it can be part, but then a candy bar and chips and low fat milk. I mean, we're even taking the good healthy fats out of regular whole foods, making them higher carbohydrate and less fat. And what we want is that more stability of our blood sugar so we don't get the spikes and don't have the insulin production, because type 2 diabetics are actually insulin resistant. There's so much that's made, the body says no more. That to manage that is done by macronutrients. So long way to say that.
What you just pointed out there, Jody, a short time back here on Northwest Digital News, we shared with people the illustration. This was what a human cell looks like pre-absorptive and post-absorptive, and of course insulin and sugar was involved in that situation. And it's really funny to me that even so many, you know, if you go and get advice from your family doctor, instead of deferring to that cellular diagram, which would help people understand how it's, I'm kind of wondering if they understand it at all, because I have never ever had a family doctor or gone in for a physical and ever had a physician show that to me or share that with me.
Even the American Diabetic Association, if you go on their site and they have a suggested diet plan, it includes very high carbohydrate diet, like foods. And it's like, do they not understand that that spikes the, and for example, somebody who is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, one of the things that doctors give them is more insulin. Well, if insulin is the fat storage hormone and they have too much insulin already, because now type 1 diabetics are very, very different. They should even have different names. Type 1 diabetics don't have enough insulin. Their pancreas is damaged and they don't make enough. So they need insulin. Type 2 diabetics make too much insulin, but yet the answer is, oh, here, let's give you more insulin. It's like, that doesn't make any sense, because then once people are on insulin, they have a harder time losing weight than they did before. And so the video that this came from, the chart, this chart right here with the, was a snapshot of a TED Talk that an obesity doctor did. And her name's Sarah Hallberg. I love the name. It's called Ignoring the Guidelines. Like, it's just the name alone, like, that'll catch my attention. But her success, as well as Dr. Jason Fung, they both have the same conclusion, in that a high carbohydrate diet is not good for people, and especially for people with blood sugar dysregulation. And so anyway, that is from hers, and I think I sent you her TED Talk as well.
Yes, you know, what's interesting is because we are exactly on the same page when it comes to that, because I was going to shoot you a text before this morning, and ask you if you had seen the Sarah Halberg's TED Talks, because I believe that's from a couple of years ago, isn't it?
Yep.
Like in the spring, a couple of years ago. And that prior fall, Time Magazine had posted a cover trying to fix a cover that they posted roughly 55 years ago with Ansel Keys on it saying, you know, that fat was bad. And now they had this new cover saying how scientists got it wrong, and it showed a big roll of butter on the front of their cover. Well, that was that fall prior to Sarah Halberg giving her talk. And it was just really, it was, you know, we had you know, learned some of the things that you're talking about and from different angles, you know, as it pertains to our own diet. But that Sarah's presentation just really ties it all together and makes perfect sense.
It is. It's the reason why I refer to it all the time. I can't do it any better. She has summarized in 20 minutes in a TED Talk using illustrations, and it explains it as clear as can be, better than any doctor appointment. So,
well, we are going to put the link for Dr. Sarah's conversation here in the show today, because we really, really recommend people see that. And then when I mentioned about the pre-absorptive and post-absorptive state, you know, as it pertains to the human cell, I saw Kyle just looking it up here a moment ago as well, and we'll put that graphic up for people to see too, because it's just, you know, what's really interesting is there's a lot of different people who have kind of pushed this conversation to understanding, you know, the whole, you know, managing blood sugar from the other side of all the advice that has been given up to this date. And one of them was actually a scientist, a rocket scientist from NASA, who got bored with his research with NASA, and his colleague said, if you want to see a bunch of bad science, go and look at what the medical industry and the food, you know, the FDA is putting out in terms of diets and their bad advice when it comes to fats, and see what you find there. And he was the one who published that book titled What If It's a Big Fat Lie? And so really, really interesting stuff. He's traveled around the United States at various universities giving his talk about how scientists and how the medical establishment were wrong about fats. And of course, you know, you've already illustrated it's the right kinds of fats, there are such a thing as good and bad.
and you know, that would be another great topic if we ever want to go into that. We can talk about the good and the bad of fats, high quality, low quality proteins, and the real and processed carbohydrates. That's a whole topic of itself, but interesting.
I think it would be totally worth doing that, because that's a very common question that people even ask me when they, you know, are going through various health complications themselves, and they're going, well, I know you're doing some unusual things. What specifically are you doing? And it's a lengthy conversation. I think what we should, I think a thing to do in upcoming shows is maybe take each of those categories individually and put them in a show in and of themselves, and maybe we can wrap it all up in a fourth broadcast that then just kind of ties those three things together. But that's how much information there is. I mean, I know you know that, but I'm saying that for our viewers, is there is that much information. And when you're talking about low and high quality proteins, low and high quality carbs, low and high quality fats, all we have to do in our daily diet is make a mistake in those categories, and I notice it right away in how I feel. Oh. And I think the average person probably would, if they're paying attention, would be noticing it too, because all that sluggishness, that tiredness, that achiness, that everything else, all of those symptoms I will experience, you know, within hours in the same day with eating the wrong food.
If I eat the wrong foods without having the right digestive enzymes I get within an hour, I can feel the bloating and the, you know, pain sometimes. And, you know, and it's just a matter of making the right choices. And when we know better, we do better.
Exactly. Well,
there is one other thing that I don't know, you know, people might or might not be interested, but and it's too much to explain here, but I did do a Facebook Live about macronutrients, fats, and I compared it to a campfire. And I think it's a really good visual about how even increasing your fat consumption, and I think in that Facebook Live, I talked a little bit about good fats and bad fats. I don't recall, it's been a while, but I can send you that too. And it gives a very good visual about how